Hello guys, today I want to discuss S-curve. So previously in the previous videos, I will put the link here or somewhere there. So I discussed T-curve, after that motion profile, why we need motion profile. So this is a course. So if you don't know anything about the motion profile, this kind of thing, you can watch the previous videos. But for those of you who see the rest of the videos, you can continue and understand what is S-curve all about, okay? So without further ado, let's get started. So this is how a typical S-curve look like. So this one is the I think they call it third order or fourth order. I think this one is third order. Okay. So this one is a typical S-curve with a jerk. So yeah, so it looked like something like this. Okay. So what's happening in this graph? Okay. So the blue lines they are acceleration. The green line is velocity, and the red line is jerk. Okay, so you see in here even it is written as well. Okay, so what will happen is that rather than we just, if you remember the T-curve, we suddenly put our leg on the acceleration constantly, right? So in here we don't do like that. So we have some sort of profile for the acceleration. Let me show you the T-curve, how the T-curve look like. So if you remember the T-curve, the T-curve is something like this. So we have a constant acceleration in each side, and after that the velocity was something like this, right? So in the S-curve, we are not doing like this anymore. In the S-curve, we are doing some sort of modulation for the acceleration. Let's go back to the S-curve. So this one is the S-curve. So if you see the acceleration is not constant anymore. So we have some sort of profile for the acceleration itself, okay? So this one is not straightforward anymore. So let me explain why this is not straightforward. So first of all, what is the motivation to do something like this? Okay, so the motivation is something like this is the first starting point when you start this thing. You have an infinite jerk. Okay, what does it mean? It means that the slope of your acceleration is infinite because it's a constant value like this, right? So it is a vertical line, right? So this is the reason that the thing that it is that perpendicular line, right? So this one is the reason that this thing, it has an infinite jerk and those kind of things. So based on the literature, this is a very bad thing, and many people also they say that this is the bad thing and this thing is mess the life up. So later I will give my own personal experience with this one. So in what I would say is that in the real life and in semicon and in the applications that I worked, the literature and my hands-on experience was not really the same. But this is the thing that literature claim, and after that, I would say that I'm not very diversified. Okay, in terms of the type of application I did in the automation. Okay, so I'm more toward rigid and fast movements, but not all the applications they are rigid and fast. So later I will discuss. But based on the literature, is what people they claim in the literature is that for certain application, infinite jerk does not perform very well. So yeah, so this is the reason that we do the S-curve. So we want to smoothen out the motion, okay? So by smoothening the acceleration, okay? So they said that this is not acceptable, okay? So what is jerk? Jerk is a rate increase of the acceleration. So it means that the slope of the acceleration, okay? So if you don't know what is jerk, it is the slope of the acceleration. For example, in here your slope is infinite, okay? But if you, for example, if you apply something like S-curve, so your jerk is, it won't be infinite anymore, so you have some sort of slope. So okay, so how to do this? So first of all, there is a catch when doing S-curve. S-curve is not like T-curve, very straightforward. If you remember, in T-curve we have two sort of condition, right? So one condition, even T-curve or T-curve with the filter, we have two condition. Okay, so one condition was triangle drive, another one was a full profile. So if you remember, it means that it is something like this. Actually, I supposed to show you in the previous video. Yes, just now I was searching for this video, so after that I find out this one in my drawings from the past that I was teaching other people. So it is like this. If you don't have enough movement, okay, if you don't have enough position, what will happen is that the profile it shrink and shrink. Okay, so this one is for T-curve, so this is not for S-curve, but the same thing applies. So in T-curve is much easier to understand it. So if you don't have enough position, so you can, if for example they ask you to go 1 cm and the maximum speed that you can go, for example, is the speed of light. Okay, can you reach to the speed of light? No, definitely you cannot to reach to the speed of light, for example, in one millisecond with a electrical motor, right? Okay, So what will happen is that you cannot to have a full profile. Okay. So how the thing will look like is in that at the beginning, if your distance is very long, you would have a full profile. If you reduce on the distance, this thing it become smaller and smaller, and eventually it become smaller and smaller up to the position, up to the point that you don't have any more max velocity anymore. So this one is with a normal T-curve, but you have the same kind of issue with the S-curve. However, with way more complicated. Okay, first of all these graphs that you see is acceleration versus time. Okay, acceleration versus time. All of them they are acceleration versus time. But now previously you had this issue only with position. Okay, if the position is not enough, now you would have this kind of problems. But now you have the same problem with the velocity. Why you have the same problem with the velocity is that because if, for example, the max velocity that they give you is too small, okay, because now you have jerk, okay, so you have a slope anymore, right? So you may not reach to the maximum, so you become something like this, okay. So imagine, for example, the velocity that they give you, it is too small, okay. So for example, they ask you to let me draw the thing. Imagine something like this. Okay, so imagine they ask you to, for example, the maximum velocity that they ask you is this much. Okay, if this one is your max. Okay, so if this is not enough, what will happen to you is that when you apply your jerk, for example, I want to let me draw again under this one, right? Okay, so if I apply my jerk, okay, so I cannot, for reaching to this guy, I cannot to reach to constant acceleration, if, for example, this velocity was higher, for example, it was something like this, maybe I could reach. What I mean is that I will become something like this maybe. But now, because the velocity, the max velocity is too small, this one is a max velocity, okay? I cannot reach anymore. Same thing with the position as well. So for example, you have two conditions. One is for velocity. When the velocity is not enough, you cannot to reach, so you will have a triangle drive. What triangle drive is for your acceleration. But you have the same condition, and this one is, for example, for the position. The position is enough, but the velocity is not enough to have a full profile. How the full profile look like for acceleration for full profile? So supposed to be like this. This one it means that both your velocity is enough and the position also is enough. Okay. But if, for example, the position is enough, but the velocity is not enough, for example, you would have a triangle drive on the acceleration. Another case scenario is that the position is not enough, but your max velocity is enough. So you will get a full profile for acceleration, but you don't have a constant velocity. Another case scenario is that neither of them is enough. It means that neither you have enough acceleration or neither you have enough velocity. Or, for example, the position is too small that your acceleration cannot reach. So in total, this thing is very nasty. So in total, it become last time I developed this one. Okay, in the second year that I was in automation, I developed this one with another engineer. So I was a lead, and after that, I had one engineer. He was the one who do the coding. I was the one who do the calculation and those kind of things. So at the end, after many years now, he's a full grown expert in terms of motion. But back in the days, I was his senior. So I'm very proud of him. So yeah. So but the thing is that back in the days when we developed this thing, so it becomes seven condition, and it is the formulas, they are not beautiful. So they are very complicated and so on and so forth. So yeah, you get something nasty. Okay. So but you have to calculate. It means that before, for example, you running the motion, you have to calculate that, okay, do I have enough velocity, do I have enough position? Okay, after that, if I have both enough, so very easy. If I have enough position but I don't have velocity, my profile would be different. It means that the number of the phases is become different. Okay. So yeah, so you have many sort of condition, and this is not easy. Okay, so in total it becomes seven condition. So we developed this. Okay, but this one is out of the scope of this tutorial. Okay, but for example, if you one day you are forced to develop these kind of things, you can hire me. So that's the story. Okay, so what is the formula behind the entire thing? It is this one. Okay, so it say that 1/6 of j t cube. Okay, plus 1/t all t square plus vt plus x. Okay, what is j is jerk, a it is acceleration, and v is velocity. And after that, you just differentiate the entire thing. So for getting velocity and acceleration. Okay, so it's simple. Okay, so if you do the differential of this one, so you will get exactly this one. It looks like a formula for the t curve, right? So the same things. Actually, you can write the general formula for the entire thing, but again, beyond the scope of this thing. Okay. So this is how you differentiate. If you don't have any math background, this is the way that you differentiate. Normally, in the differentiating things we are doing, we are subtracting, for example, the x minus, for example, on top, and after that the t is on bottom. So this one it give you the slope, right? So if you remember the normal mathematics, this thing it give you the slope. So okay, this one is something is important to understand. Okay, so the differential of the position it become velocity, the differential of the velocity it become acceleration, the differential of the acceleration it become jerk, and the differential of the jerk it become a snap. Okay, after this is a snap is already something too what to say, that it is too imaginary already, even the jerk itself in the reality, in my opinion, it doesn't have that much of impact. Okay, I won't say that I don't want to say so, don't want to generalize, because again, I'm from semicon background. I'm from semicon background, robocon background, this kind of thing. But both of all the applications that I was in, they were fast and solid. Okay, it means that they were rigid and fast. So yeah, so it means that I never worked with something with, for example, 300 inertia ratio. So yeah, so for those applications, maybe my statement does not apply. But for example, in all applications that I worked in, jerk, I won't give credit to having something like a S curve as much as the vendors and suppliers they do, right? So there's vendors and suppliers, they want to sell, so they have to differentiate themselves, right? So that is the reason that. So okay, so first you need to consider my background. So I'm, as mentioned, I'm in rigid spectrum, fast and rigid. Okay, fast and rigid. What does it mean, rigid? So rigidity is very important. Okay, so for example, what is a non-rigid system? Okay, for example, something with a belt system is not really rigid. Okay, so for example, something like belt, it is not very rigid. Okay, something like a linear motor, something like this. Okay, something like linear motor. These guys, they are rigid as and these things, they are really rigid. Okay? I can talk about the linear motors for an eternity. The construction of the linear motors, those kind of things. But these things, they are very rigid. Okay, these guys, they are both precise and rigid. Okay, but something like belt, no, this is not the case. Okay, so my background is from some. So these things, they achieve both fast and they are rigid, so less vibration, those kind of things. What is the drawback? Cost. Okay, but for example, something like belt and pulley system, they are, for example, they are cheap, but the problem that it is that you have more vibration, they are less rigid. For example, they cannot to go, for example, they cannot to achieve, for example, if this one achieve 300G pulley system, anything is possible. But for example, the pulley system, for example, if the acceleration of 300G, for example, is achievable in this one, pulley system will suffer. Okay, so hey, it cannot achieve the same performance. Okay, so they cannot to achieve those kind of things. Okay, but this is my background. Okay, so in my background, okay, so what will happen is that in my background, in all applications that I play, okay, in all applications, okay. So in my previous I'm doing robotic for since I was 19, and now I'm 20. I'm 34 years old now. So I'm doing this thing for almost 15 years. So okay, in all the applications that I work in, anytime somebody put a shotgun on my head and said that tune this system, okay, tune this system, okay. So there is a shotgun in your head, and they say that make this thing as fast as possible, okay, with the least vibration as possible, okay. Not even a single time a scare over perf. If you mean that if you fix the time, okay, it means that they ask you both time. For example, you do the same motion in the same amount of time, okay. It means that, for example, both of them, they give you 10 milliseconds, they give you a very tight timing, for example 10 milliseconds, and they ask you that, for example, in this 10 milliseconds, for example, you can do this with T curve and you can do it with S curve. Every single time I overperform with the T curve over S curve. Okay, and the reason that it is also is this. Okay, the reason that it is that if they fix the time, they tell you that you cannot to extend the time. This is the time that you have to follow. Okay, so what I find out is that the reason that when you do the S curve at the beginning, you are moving slower. Okay, so when you are moving slower in this first portion of the thing compared to the T curve, you are moving slower. Okay, So when you are moving slower, you have to compensate back, right? So in the second part, you have to move faster. It means that you have more acceleration, okay? This one, the system won't like it, okay? Acceleration is more important than jerk, okay? Why? The acceleration, it directly impact the inertia mass. You are fighting. Your biggest concern when in the fast application, your biggest concern is if, for example, you are not a vertical movement or you are not some weird condition. For example, vertical movement, there is a weight on you or this kind of things, okay? But for example, if you are not, for example, some sort of weird condition, for example, you are in a, for example, linear state, for example, you just move something straight forward or this kind of thing, okay? Assuming in a typical motion application, okay? The main concern is always weight, inertia. If it's something rotary, the main concern is inertia. What I mean by that, okay, so just imagine this truck versus this race car, okay? Which one will move faster, okay? The race car. Why? It has lesser weight. When you have lesser weight, you need lesser force to move the thing, right? So that is a very big concern, okay? So when you need a lesser weight to move the thing, so you have more power to spare, okay? So the weight is the most important thing, and beside the weight is more the power. You see your I once the better way that I say your power compared to your weight, okay? So when for example, imagine something like this. For example, something like this scenario, okay? That for example, I'm accelerating slower. After that, I'm accelerating faster, right? So in the part that I'm accelerating faster, I need more power. At the beginning, I'm working less. On the second part, I'm working more. So what will happen is that this one is not good. Actually, it's better from all the applications that I did. It is better that, for example, okay, your acceleration. I could be wrong. So I really up to this stage, I'm trying to prove that I'm wrong. Okay. So in every application that I try to tune, I will try both, give a shot to both S-curve and the T-curve. Okay. But so far in all, and again, you consider that I'm from the rigid and fast application. Okay. In every single application that I tuned, this one overperform. It means that you have a constant acceleration, but it is constant, but it is lower. It means that the peak acceleration is lower. So it means that your peak torque is lower. Okay, compared to the something like, for example, TKF. In this one, it shows very well, because acceleration and torque, or for example, even force, all of them, they are the graphs. They are look the same. The graphs, if you put them on top of each other, they are exactly the same. The only difference is that the units would be different. So, however, this one, the thing that I say, I could be very wrong, especially Mitsubishi. Actually, this one is a paper from Mitsubishi. You have to definitely read it. I will put it in this memo. I will share this memo also. This one, it is about the inertia ratio and those kind of things. It is a Bible, for inertia ratio. This paper is a Bible. Okay, so you have to definitely read this one. But for example, for higher inertia ratio, especially for example something like, for example, 300 inertia ratio. Okay, 300, it means that, yeah, the weight, for example, the shaft of the motor is, for example, one. If the shaft of the motor is one, for example, the weight that they put on the shaft is 300. Okay, so the statement that I'm saying could be very wrong. Okay, so don't quote me on this. Okay, so yeah, so this is this. So this one is other good example of the inertial ratio, the S curve. So this one is all the paper. So I already put all this in the resources. You can go look to it. You see that how the guys they doing this and this kind of things. But to be honest with you, if you ask me in general, okay, the S-curve is, first of all, not all the vendors they do it implementing it correctly. It's mean that the full-blown S-curve that handle all the conditions, this kind of things. Okay, suppliers, not all of them they don't doing it right. Okay, this is the first part. But even if they doing it right, compared to the price that you pay, for example, the price tag that you pay, that for example you get a servo drive that for example has, for example, all these things, okay, doesn't work. It just doesn't work. If you are developing the servo drive by yourself, again, doesn't work. Why I have to consume this much of computation to do it? Okay, so at least I never in my applications I never could justify the S-curve so far up to this day. But yeah, so if you have a different experience, please let me know. You can put the things down below. So in the next tutorial, I will explain about the snap. So it would be the higher order of this thing. Okay. So if you are interested, please watch. So after that, we go to the sign and those kind of things. So this one is as mentioned at the early of the video, this one is a course. You can see the previous videos, you can see the next video. Thanks for watching and see you again. Bye.